Hey everybody, welcome back to Kali Conversation.
Welcome back.
We are no longer in Reno, and
No,
we're
we
actually
left.
we're in Santa Rosa,
Santa Rosa, of all places.
which is 2 hours away from where we normally at from our gym, right?
It's closer than Reno.
It's much closer than Reno. This is Kali Conversation with me, Rick,
And me, Naeem.
and this young man. I'm not even gonna.
My name is Michael D'Alba.
No, but his
No.
title is the thing that's I'm having a hard time. Diablo, I got no problem.
I got the cook part and the sim part. What was the middle part?
So technically it's Grandmaster, and
Why did you just say that?
but in Korean
Sorry.
it's called Kuksanim.
Kuksanim.
Kuksan-
So
Name.
all my students know me as Kuksanim. If you want to call me Michael, that's fine because you're not my students.
Right.
But I'm just
Yeah.
saying all my students, we follow a certain etiquette. Our teachers are Sabonim and Kyosanim, and like Master Pinto, he is Kwanjanim.
Kwangjanim.
So I'm Kuksanim.
Oh, okay.
Kuksanim.
And that means Grandmaster.
It means Grandmaster.
What is going to say Grandmaster?
The equivalent title.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. All
That's
so
funny.
It's not necessarily a translation.
You know, and I'm glad that we
There is.
started.
It's interesting, but I
Really?
don't want to bore you guys.
Oh, no.
I'm glad that we started with
fine.
that, like you said, the traditional stuff and respect things, because we had talked about that prior to this, folks, and I was telling them that in our system we don't have that. We don't do the sensei, guru, or anything like that. We just say koya, which means brother.
Or even teacher.
And it's not that we're trying to be disrespectful to the old ways.
Totally.
Tradition has always been very near and dear to me. I've been in a lot of schools where it was that.
I have not.
Yeah, but I've gotten away from it because of personal reasons. But tradition is a big thing, especially in the Korean martial arts, Japanese martial arts,
Chinese.
Chinese Kaiju Kempo, very traditional, and there's a good reason for that. And you were getting ready to tell us on some of the reasons, because without that respect and the growth of all those things that comes from all that, the system doesn't go as well as it normally would.
Well, here's my thinking there. So our system, our martial art, is called modern Faramusul.
Okay.
So what I end up having to do with this style is I ended up. Well, I have to go back a little bit to let you
Do
know
it.
some of the roots of how this came to be.
We're here all day.
Yeah. And actually, I can go back to that if you want. But at any rate, so modern Faramusul blends the traditional components of martial arts, which do include respect and discipline and etiquette, things like that. And it's also very modern and progressive, where we don't worry about rank and we don't worry about, it's all about the knowledge, and it doesn't matter where this knowledge comes from, if it's a Japanese armbar or Filipino stick fighting. We don't care, because for me, a whack with a stick is a whack with a stick.
There you go.
A choke is a choke.
Yeah.
A sidekick is a sidekick, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean or Muay Thai, does not matter. That hurts. And so we look at it that way from a more functional standpoint. So we try to blend those two worlds, because as you can see, there's a lot of balance in what we do. And so part of that balance, aside from the philosophical components of yang, the yin yang, if you will, in Korean martial arts, is to have the hard and the soft, which comes out in our training. The empty hand, the weapon, that comes out in our training. The martial arts, the killing arts, and the healing arts, and to have compassion, that's part of that balance. Everything is part of the one,
Right.
as we say in Faramusul. So that also includes, the traditional components and the non-traditional components. If we don't understand what we're doing here, how can I use this to defend myself in a very extreme situation? So, for example, people ask me all the times if I've ever used my martial art, and I say, of course, yeah, every day. And wow, you get in fistfights every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, see, that's because you don't understand martial arts. I use martial arts literally to get out of bed every day, to deal with
Right.
life, to deal with crazy people at work, and you name it, right? But then, of course, and when it comes to defending myself, of course I've defended myself. I've taught martial arts when I was in the military. And what I taught in the military is a little bit different mentality, a different need for what we do in the civilian sector. So, again, there's that fighting, that killing. You have to understand who your opponent is. In the military, it's your enemy, and you're not here to score points on them. You're here to neutralize or
Right.
kill the enemy. And in the street, you're there to defend yourself. So if you don't understand what someone from the street, the danger they pose to you,
Right.
and you think that your training is good enough, all I can say is I hope you're right.
I like that mindset. Like,
I hope you're right.
I hope you're not proven wrong.
Right.
Me,
right.
I don't want to. I don't. I want to hedge my bets. I want to train as much as I can. I've had plenty of experience of using my dukes and all that kind of stuff, and
Right.
being jumped and all that kind of stuff. I've done that. I've dealt with that. So my perspective and my attitude about self defense is a little bit different from a lot of people.
You know, it's funny that you say that because a lot of martial arts, or a lot of people who train in martial arts, have never gotten to a real fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, right? I mean, you train all your life to do the martial arts, to learn how to fight.
To not fight.
But if you're a really good practitioner, you shouldn't fight.
Right.
Well, that's the goal. So
Because
hopefully you
yeah.
never have to, honestly. And actually, the more you learn, the less you really want to use it.
Yeah.
I think of like if I have to, for example, hit someone, I'm not going to just tap you.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to remember that day. And I don't want to have to explain myself to a cop or to some of your family members or why you're broken or why you're in
Yeah.
a coma or stuff like that. Other than that, then why are we fighting? Why can't we
Yeah.
settle this? This or better yet, you're right. You're right. I'm ugly. This is your spot. I'm sorry, and I would rather disengage because if it comes to
She's
this,
your woman.
Yeah.
if it comes to this, I'm not going to sit here and play around.
Right.
And so, you have to learn to pick
Now,
your battles.
one of our guests kind of also said that, and I forget which one it was, but he says, if it's a fight against me, not a big deal. I'll walk away. But if it's somebody that I love or care for, then that's different. And I believe that was Doc Gavin.
I believe so,
Yeah, he was saying that
Yeah, spit on me.
About me,
throw
I
a
don't
drink
care.
on me. I don't care. Say
but
whatever
when
you
somebody
want.
that I know or somebody that I
Yeah.
that I care about, then I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do.
Well, that's kind of a byproduct of the more you train and the more I don't want to use the word dangerous, but that's basically it. The more dangerous you become, the more responsible you are. Like, for example, I had a student who carried a firearm. He worked in security and carried a firearm in civilian sector, and he was jumped one time. I remember we were training in my house, and he told me he got jumped, and these 2 or 3 guys were beating him up and whatever, and he ended up fighting and using whatever I taught him to defend himself. And I asked him, I said, Jason, do you have your gun with you? He's like, yeah, of course, it's right here in my pouch. And I go, and you didn't use it? He's like, no, I didn't want to kill anybody. And I was like, wow, he would rather take some licks and deal with it later
That's amazing.
than
how
to
proud of a-
pull your gun out,
Of a
because
grandmaster are you for that?
that takes a lot of self-control.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
feel the same way with hand-to-hand. I mean, to me, hand-to-hand, you can get you can get your black eye, your teeth knocked out, your
Right.
nose, whatever,
Yeah.
ribs cracked, but you could also be put in a coma. You could also not come home. And to me, that's I said, that's the kind of opponent I want to envision myself to have to defend against, than versus, it'll be some guy who won't be so hard, he'll be skinny and some little accountant, and no problem. No, I want my opponent is a guy who's been in jail for the last 10 years,
Right.
and he thinks I'm the guy who's living with his wife while he was gone, and that's my opponent, and plus he killed 7 guys. That's the kind of opponent I want to think to prepare for, because anything less than that, I'm having a good day.
Wow.
Right.
That guy had a really good lawyer if he only got 7 years.
Very good lawyer.
That's
7 people dead.
That was my first time. I was like, damn, killed that many people, you only got on 7?
He got off real
crazy.
good.
You
Not
got-
even the chair.
No.
No parole. Nothing.
It's gas here.
He
Okay,
pays attention, by the
so-
way.
but a lot of people really talk about a lot of the guests we've had talk about the training and their personal life and the reasons why they do it, but very few have really framed it the way that you just said it, and it resonates with me because I'm the opposite of you, but I think the same way. I've never been in a fight. I've always been able to talk my way out of things because I never had the pride to be, you're
Ponder's
saying, what
changed.
about me? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm an asshole. I get it. I'm going to walk away now. I'm just going to go. I'm scared. Half of getting beat up, but the other half of enjoying hurting somebody. Like that's kind of like
and it's not a
the fear in
guarantee.
my
There,
head.
there is no guarantee that you're gonna be able to defend yourself, win the situation, and walk away. So again, in my opinion, you got to pick your fights. That's one thing I learned very, very early on: is learn to pick your fights, and if you're gonna commit to fight, then fight, and if not,
Yeah.
then don't. And
Don't
going back to
half-ass
what I
it.
said
It's
before,
one or the other. Isn't it?
use
I mean,
your
literally.
verbal jujitsu.
Yeah.
Just talk you out of it and become friends if possible. But just de-escalate and get out of there, because you never know who you're dealing with or how many you're dealing with. Or we don't interview ourselves when we're having a problem.
Right.
You have a problem with me, motherfucker. Blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
right.
So this is gonna go to first blood, or knives are involved.
Yeah.
Can my friend jump in? There is no negotiation. It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're dealing
Whatever
with.
comes of it comes.
Yeah,
of it.
you don't know
No.
what you're dealing with.
I literally just saw that situation. It was a high school fist fight. These two kids were fighting. One kid still had his backpack on, so it felt like the other guy just, kind of started it, didn't even give him a chance to take his backpack off. But they were fighting. The guy that didn't have his backpack on kind of like backed off a little bit. The other guy pulled the knife and stabbed him several times.
Yeah.
None of them were critical, but the kid was bleeding. Somebody stopped the guy. He wasn't. He stopped on his own, and then the teacher was talking to him. Hey, calm down. But it went from fist fight to
Knife
something
fight,
deadly
yeah.
so quickly.
Sure.
And the guy's just running, bleeding, trying to get away. Everybody disperses. He's got a knife. He's got, and just in a blink of an eye.
And that's just it. You don't know who you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what your opponent's true intentions are. As I said, you don't interview each other. You don't go, okay, this is to the death, or just to someone gives up. Can we tap out? Are knives involved?
base.
There is no
Yeah.
there is no negotiation process. Basically, and you can't. There's no guarantee. I don't know what your skill is, what your background is. I don't know who you are. Because if I do know all these things, that means we're probably friends, and
Right.
we're probably not gonna fight.
Right.
But it's probably some stranger who, whatever.
I love what you're saying, is because nobody has ever brought this up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, all the other people that we've talked to, it was just going to fight balls on everything going.
if you have to, of
Yeah,
course.
if you had to. Only if you had to. But the fact that you're saying that, you're right, we don't talk to our opponents. Shit happens. I do security.
Yeah.
And I've had it where people just come at me and just go. They look at me like, I can take this guy, and then they just go. And you're like, okay. And I have to, because I'm in security, because I'm working for a company, I can't just go crazy like I normally would out in the middle of the streets, where I have to like restrain, subdue, and hold, and whatever else.
Separate and report.
That kind of stuff. So there's a lot of rules that go behind what I can and can't do, especially in the general public. I used to work in a hotel. So, in a hotel, you can't look like security's beating the crap out of everybody who comes by just because, I have to show a little decorum and say,
Video of Rick just.
yeah, I'm very, we're restricted to what we can do.
That's why it's important to understand what the rules of engagement are. I'm using
Yeah.
military
Oh,
terms,
you-
right?
yeah, exactly.
And the
Yeah,
escalation
exactly
of
right,
force.
yeah.
You have to realize how much force you can use, and when it's legally and morally possible to inflict severe deadly force, and that's something that's very, very important. So, for example, I remember I've been teaching knife fighting for many years. I've been a big fan of knives since I was a little kid. I had my own little box of knives since I was a member.
see this.
I used to carry knives with me and
Yeah,
all
he
this kind of
scares me
stuff,
that way.
weapons and all that kind of stuff.
Hunter's Point.
Then when I was in the military, I was working with special forces guys, and one of the things they kept asking me for was, how to use knife training, and I said sure. So knife fighting is not to wound the guy or make a nice cut or scare him with a knife. If you pull out the knife, it's the same as pulling out your gun. You better be ready to use it. If not, then just keep that puppy away. Keep that as a secret, as a matter of fact, even better. And so as I started teaching knife fighting to both military and then eventually to the civilian sector, I started to kind of crystallize the philosophy behind it. And this is one of the things that I found very, very important, not only as part of my own philosophy, but kind of something that distinguishes what we do in terms of knife fighting that I don't really see in a lot of other knife training. And that is two things. Number one is the mental aspects of it, the mentality of understanding what a knife person does. And the other part is how to actually use it. And I'll explain that in a second. So number one is, how are you going to defend or defeat a person who comes with a knife if you've never worked with a knife and know how to use a knife yourself? So you're going to need that training, number one. Number two, you have to understand who is your opponent.
Right.
Who is that guy who finds it necessary to pull a knife on you to settle whatever problem you had?
Right.
And most likely, again, he's not going to pull out and go, all right, now it's on, sucker. That's in the movies. Most likely, you'll never see it. You're thinking a fist fight, and suddenly there's blood.
Yeah.
and or they'll come to you in the back, and those of us that kind of seen that side of the self-defense understand what I'm talking about. But my point is, you need to prepare for that. You have to understand this is part of the mental training that we do in knife fighting and for sure in Fighting School. I teach a philosophy that I called learn to draw your mental line in the sand. Learn to draw your mental line in the sand. And what does that mean? So line in the sand is like you put a line here and say, don't pass that, otherwise there's going to be problems. Mm-hmm. So everyone knows what that is. You draw a line on the foot and don't cross that line, right? So the mental line in the sand, in my mind, is this: if this line is crossed, all bets are off.
Right, that's
and
the exclamation
so
point.
That line, to me, is the use of deadly force. What will it take for me to use deadly force? For someone to cross that line where I'm forced to use everything in my power, and that's probably going to mean this guy's going to be really, really hurt. Someone's getting hurt, and that includes me and who knows what, so sure.
I have a question. Is that a set standard for every situation, or does that line go up and down depending on the person in front of you?
That line is the line, and I'll explain.
Okay.
So let me ask you the question. I do this to all these guys all the time. Mm-hmm. What would it take for you to use deadly force?
Somebody using deadly force on me, or intending to?
Someone presenting you with a deadly situation. Yeah. And there's no wrong answers. What do you say? What does it take for you to use deadly force?
If I saw him use it on somebody else already and he's coming towards me.
So if deadly force already demonstrated?
Yeah. Huh. Because that's intent and ability.
Right.
Right. They have the intent of doing something, but yet I've also seen that they can do it.
They've proven that they're willing and capable of it, right?
Yeah.
Both of those are great answers. And to me, the most simple answer is, and this is what eventually people will get to, because I'll ask a group of people and I will get a variety of answers, but invariably what will boil down to is when you feel that your life, like you were saying, or the life of a loved one is in danger, all bets are off.
Right.
And some people say, oh, don't worry about me, I'm fine. But God forbid you touch my kid or you touch my one hair of my mom. And,
Right.
So understanding that if your life or the life of a loved one is in danger, then that's a mental line in the sand that you have to understand very, very clearly what that means.
Oh.
And then furthermore, you have to identify that. So right now what we've talked about is the chapter 1, and it's called Mental Line in the Sand. The book is called Mental Line in the Sand. Chapter 1 is understanding what is your line and what it constitutes to be deadly force.
So what I just realized right there in my answer that I just gave you, and this is crazy, and I just realized it now. I've been doing security for over 45 years. And it's a security-oriented answer. Mm-hmm. That if I'm at work and I see that you've already done this and you're capable...
Stuff is happening.
then I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And I didn't even think about my family or my loved ones. Or
want me to throw a wrench in your gears right now? Yeah. By you waiting to see for it to happen, you're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You? What if it already happened to you? You don't realize it's happening to you. Like, oh, shit, he just did this, but it did to me. Yeah. And that's part of the problem. Like, most people walk around like, it'll never happen to me. It just happened to someone else. It's in the movies or those people that it's someone else. But that victim mentality, we have to be very, very clear that we're not here to be no one's victim on this planet.
Right, of course.
And part of that is understanding what our own God-given rights and our line that our morals and our values and standing behind that and doing something about it. So now that we understand that if I feel that my life or the life of a loved one, like some people say, oh, it's very easy for me to see that if someone touches my child, all bets are off. But for me, I'm okay. Like, no. You have to realize that your child depends on you. Mm-hmm. And if you really love your child, then you have to love yourself equally as much to defend yourself as much so you can be there for your child. So it goes beyond that. You see what I'm saying?
He's the first one to say it. Because that, to me, that's what love means. It means caring for yourself or caring for another person as much as you care
for
yourself.
That is part of that mental line, to understand that you're a part of that, very important part of that equation. And then once we've got that clear, awesome, great. Actually, no, like I said, we've just begun the conversation.
It's just the beginning.
Because the next chapter is called Such As.
Such as.
I will defend myself to the fullest of my capability, including deadly force, such as I see you do something dangerous before. I see you present a deadly threat to me. I see you pull a knife on me. I see 3 guys. This ain't a Jackie Chan movie. I'm not going to start beating all these guys. 2 guys it's not that easy, especially
Right.
if these guys know what they're doing. Or just
Or
have
just
that much
aggressive.
intent, you know, that kind of intent.
Yeah.
And, you know, you never know. So you have to start identifying, like, I'm walking down an alleyway. I just got off work, came out of the movies. I parked on the street. You know, it was nice and lit when I went to the movies. When I came back, it's nice and dark. It's a nice night. And as soon as I turned that corner, my little spidey senses start going off. And us, because we're so civilized, we just ignore, like, everything's fine. Just relax. But that is our natural preservation. This is
Right.
going, pay attention. This is not right. Something's not right here. Oh my God, there I see some shot. Oh, there's 3 people standing, hovering by my car.
Right.
Should I go, excuse me, guys, I'm trying to get my car. You know, you're walking in the wrong, you're in the walking in the wrong mindset.
Yeah, you are.
You're in the
Oh my
wrong
God.
mindset.
There's so many
Talk about awareness. It's like-
That's a such
Yeah.
as to me.
Got it.
Such as. So as you start doing those such ases, then the next chapter is, in this case, I will be prepared to do this, and that, because they are not all the same.
Right.
In this case, I'll be prepared to do this, and that. In
Get
this case, I will
this
pull out my
close to
knife.
the line.
In this case, I will use a gun. In this case, I will use a stick. In this case, I will use whatever I have. I will use any improvised weapon. I will smack your head on this table, no problem, on this nice edge, so on and so forth. You start to develop that, and then the next part
wanna
is
see
like,
this
what
book.
tools do I have for that? What training do I have that?
Right.
When you're in the street and someone pulls a knife, that is not the time for you to go, oh, I really hate knives.
I didn't practice it.
It's in my next belt. Can we meet, in a couple of weeks? We do knife training at that time. That is not the time. We have a saying, and I'm sure you guys agree. The more you sweat on the mats, the less you bleed on the
less you
streets.
bleed on the streets,
And
yeah.
that is very, very true. And that's part of this philosophy. But let me just add another element to what I'm saying, because I'm sounding very aggressive and very tough
Oh
ass.
no, I love it.
and
We're going to give context to the people as to why that is. We're going to talk about your childhood after your point.
my point is, I want to go back to balance, and the balance of this. What we're talking about a lot is the martial arts, the fighting arts, the killing arts, because that's what martial arts means. Is killing, military training, right?
Just in case.
The other component, right? So that's the red is the martial art,
Right.
The yang, right?
Right.
The blue is the the yin.
Yeah.
And that's the passiveness. That's the compassion. That's the control. That's
that's
the
the equal balance.
restraint. And that the restraint. And that's, you must temper that kind of strength with just hardcore compassion and love. And when you understand